All right. So today we're going to do our CDI Teach, which I will explain what that is in a little bit. It's part of the protocol for the treatment that we call PCIT, which is Parent-Child Interaction Therapy, which we've basically spent some time looking during our baseline at how your child responded during play when she was playing on her own, when you were actually directing the play, and during cleanup. And we kind of looked at what were the responses, and based on those kind of aggressive, oppositional behaviors, this definitely seems like a good approach. And this is kind of the protocol that we use with young kids who may be oppositional, a lot of ADHD kids who have difficulty controlling their impulses, who have difficulty following directions or even paying attention to directions. This is kind of that perfect place for them. What would be your expectations for a treatment like this? Like, what do you expect? No pressure.
I think first I would expect it not to take a super long time, just due to like cost and wanting to see improvement quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like that it wouldn't be like, preferably probably not like over a year, or a treatment where you'd have to like take the kid out of class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it definitely is a short-term treatment. We want to have a solution at the end. We don't want to keep you or your child in therapy forever. We're going to give you skills. You're going to walk out of here feeling like you can manage your child's behavior more effectively. We're going to start you with some skills that are going to be more in the positive realm of increasing the chance that your child's going to do certain things and keep the momentum going in that direction. And then we're going to move on to limit setting. So for a little bit, it's going to be a little bit of wait and see, like bear with me and just trust the process. And then we'll move forward with that discipline piece. Okay, so I want to give you first just an overview of PCIT. It's split into those two phases that I was just sharing with you, and today we're doing our CDI Teach. CDI is child-directed interactions, which is that first phase where we're really teaching you play therapy skills, where you're going to help your child see where they're successful, where they're effective, and kind of guide them in the right direction in those areas where they're having more difficulty. We find that the skills that we use here, they help improve attention, they help keep kids on task, they help kids learn that they can calm down, that they can feel good in certain interactions, especially for the kids that we typically see in this type of treatment who are constantly hearing, no, stop, like getting in trouble. We want them to feel success in a lot of what they're doing. And it also helps parents to really feel that enjoyment around their kids, because it can be really frustrating feeling like your kid's just always fighting back at you, and even just pulling out some magnet tiles seems like a fight. Like, how are we going to get them back in the box? Where is this going to go from here? So we will, in those phases, really work on positive skills and trying to lead them in the right direction to promote these great behaviors. The second piece, that second phase, is called parent-directed interactions, or PDI. That's where we jump into the discipline, the limit setting, and we'll have very specific techniques that we'll be teaching you to help your child just obey directions, follow directions, decrease those problem behaviors. Each phase, it kind of varies. It could be anywhere from 5 weeks or 10 weeks. It sort of depends on how much work you put in outside of here. I like to think that even though I'm working with you here and kind of tuning you up, the real therapy happens at home, and that's where that medicine is. Therapy is kind of like a dosage of medicine. You give a little bit each day, and then you get to your therapeutic dose. So we're going to keep working on that. The more you do, the more you get out of it. So depends on coming here, depends on home practice, all plays into it. But we do have families that graduate from this treatment in as little as 3 months. So in time, you should, even at the halfway point of treatments, should see a significant difference in behaviors at home, even before we get to that limit setting piece. Feel free to ask any questions along the way.
Yeah. How much time do we have to commit 1 week?
Oh, great question. So in terms of coming in to our office weekly, it'll be 1 hour sessions weekly with both parents and with your child. At home, it's going to be 5 minutes a day, and we'll talk about why and what you'll be doing during those 5 minutes. Do you feel like you can commit to that 1 hour weekly and 5 minutes each day?
Is it both parents, like mother and father, or?
Mother and father each at their different times. So you'll spend 5 minutes with your child at one point, and you'll spend 5 minutes with your child at another point. They can be back to back. They can be at completely different times doing completely different activities. The 5 minutes will work into your schedule, and we'll talk about what that will look like and the importance of it. So in terms of what we're going to be doing today, today's just a teaching session where I'm going to give you all the skills for that first phase of CDI. I'm going to explain to you how to use them, what they look like, and then after we have this teach, we'll go forward with those weekly sessions where your child will come in with you and we'll start practicing, and that's where we bring in the bug in the ear and the one-way mirror, and we'll start in vivo going through these interactions and giving you feedback so that you can more effectively manage those behaviors. So the only time that it's going to be just us is for this teach, and then once we move on to the second phase, we'll have another one with just parents again. Otherwise, your child's always coming in with you. Before each session, when you come in, it will be first just to check in a couple of minutes, just what's going on this week, any specific areas that you're looking for help with. You're always going to fill out those forms that you brought in the beginning and that you filled out right before you came in. That's so that we can keep monitoring progress on a weekly basis. Then you'll go in and do your coaching playtime, and we'll do each parent. We'll switch around so that you each get adequate time, and then we'll do a quick checkout at the end. So that's like what's going to happen in both phases. Before each, when you go into the rooms, we're going to actually do just like a coding time where I'm just going to watch you for a couple of minutes in the beginning to just see where you are with your skills so that I can more effectively help you to grow. So if you're struggling in one area, it's hard for me to tell if I'm just coaching you the entire time. So I always will check in on that first and go from there so that we can just like make our time the most useful while we're here. Yeah, so that is basically how that will work. When we're ready for the second phase, then we'll have our teach and we'll go through all of that then so that you feel like you have those skills. It really is helpful and necessary to have these first positive skills to help support you in the next phase so that you can really effectively discipline. We find that if we throw it all at you at once, it's just too much to remember and it's too much to handle at once. So that's why we break it down into the two pieces. As I said before, attendance is really, really important. We really want to stick with consistency. That's part of the treatment. That's what makes it so effective. And if you stick with it, it really will make a big difference in yours and your child's life. All right, so you ready for CDI?
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of what CDI is, again, it's those positive skills. It's increasing the chance that they're going to see success and feel good about what they're doing. We're building up a really strong relationship between you and your child. And we know you already have a great relationship with your kid because you're their parent and you care and you love them. But we're going to work on how to specifically build that up even more so that when you get to the point where you are ready to discipline, they have a much better chance of listening because they feel very supported. They feel trusted. I'm going to teach you how to use positive attention to help manage behaviors, which sounds kind of crazy right now, but it will be something that is more manageable. There are going to be times where you do need consequences, you do need discipline, but you'd be surprised how much you can really use the positive skills for that. We can definitely work on communicating with kids who have short attention spans, teach them new things about how to manage their frustrations. We'll make you and your child probably feel better about the interaction and about your child's capabilities and their own capabilities. We can also teach social skills, sharing, all of those pieces that are really integral to a kid being well-liked, making friends, just being a student, which is really their job at the end of the day. As I said, we start with CDI because we're kind of setting you up for success for that next piece, and it will be really necessary and helpful to have all of this be automatic and be in your back pocket before we go on to all of like the discipline piece, before we focus on really difficult behaviors. So if we have to remember just one thing for now about CDI, it is the number one rule, which is you follow the child's lead. CDI, child-directed interactions, we follow their lead. So we're not going in and telling them, I want to play with the magnet tiles, I sit over there, anything of that sort, because they're the ones who are telling us really what to do and how to play together. We're going to work on specific skills that you're going to use here and you're going to use during those 5-minute sessions at home, which we're going to call special time. When you're here, when you're at home, if there's something else you'd rather call it, we're open, but that's typically what we do with little kids. So those 5 minutes each day will help you to support what you're doing here. Some of the things that we're going to do, you're already going to know. You're probably doing some of these things and we're just going to increase the rate because they're really just good parenting skills. But we're going to increase that rate during special times, that it's really a therapeutic time for both of you. It's giving you practice at using them effectively, and it's giving your child that medicine, that dosage of those really good, strong positive skills and those good feelings in that time. At home, it's not like all of this is going to apply right now because you're going to need to take the lead. There are going to be things that you have to tell your child to do, and for now, just bear with me, do your best. Whatever you're doing, just try that. This will help support you in that, but we're not ready for the directions yet. Okay, so we're going to talk about CDI first and what skills are actually a part of that. Don't ask me why, because I don't have the answer for you of why we start with the don'ts versus the do's, because I really like that it should be about what we are doing as opposed to not, but here we are. So, the don't skills, there are 3. The first is to avoid commands. Any guesses why we're avoiding commands?
Because that would make the child less likely to like want to answer or like follow the command.
So they would want to follow it if we're giving it. They could want to follow, they might not want to. The real reason that we're not giving commands is that it's child-led play. So if they're leading it, then if we're telling them what to do, we've just broken like our number one rule. So it can sound really hard, like how am I not going to tell them what to do? But I promise, I'm going to tell you what to do during that time instead. But they're directing. There are 2 types of commands. One is direct, so telling them exactly what to do. Hand me the magnet tile, sit down over there, please close the door. Telling them what to do, it's pretty clear, it's direct. And then there's those indirects where it's kind of like we're giving them a command, we're telling them what to do, but we're really giving a choice. So like, would you like to hand me the magnet tile? Would you mind closing the door? Let's sit over here. And while a lot of kids do follow those commands, we're really giving them a choice, and if they were to say no, they wouldn't be wrong. So a lot of this is going to be thinking about your wording, which sounds a little nuanced, but I promise kids pick up on it. Alright, so even if it's indirect and we're giving them a choice, it tends to take over the play, so we're just avoiding commands completely. Also, if you do give a command and your child doesn't comply with it, now it's really hard to make it positive and make it about that enjoyable experience because now they didn't listen, and what are you going to do about it? So if we don't give the commands to start with, then we don't get ourselves in that kind of situation. Okay, so what's the first thing we're avoiding?
Commands.
Commands, perfect. We're also avoiding questions. Any guesses why?
Then that also gives them the option to not do it. They
Right.
might want the parent to do.
Right, so if we have a question that involves a command, definitely. It also asks them to answer, and that can be our way of directing it. Also, kids get so many questions all day. It's like, what'd you have for lunch? Did you get your homework done? What are you doing after school? Did you sit next to this person? There's a constant need for adults to ask questions and for then kids to have the expectation that they have to answer. So we want to remove that expectation. We don't want to take over the lead of the conversation. We're just following. Questions can show disapproval. So like, why'd you put that over there? You're playing with the magnet tiles. then it kind of shows that you're just not into what they're wanting. Or it could be that you're not really listening to them, and even if you are, and you ask a question, they may think that you're not, and it's just not a good feeling. There are a couple of types of questions. Some are just like informational, asking questions, your typical who, what, where, when, why, how, those type. Like, we know for sure we asked a question. We have other ones that are unintentional questions, and that's kind of when, you know, your child says, here's your water, and you go, your water?
Mm-hmm.
And now you just asked them a question, but you knew exactly what they said. So we didn't mean to, but it came back to them as a question, which can be confusing, seem like you're not paying attention. And then we have questions that are actually commands. So like, do you want to clean up? Do you want to bring that chair over here? Those types of things are questions when in fact we're really looking for them to do a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that all make sense so far?
Yeah, the question where you like respond like, oh, your water, do you think that like lack of attention is like picked up by the kid and that makes them aggravated? Like, is it that nuance? Like, they notice that?
I think it depends on the kid.
Okay.
And so for some, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
For some, maybe not like necessarily aggravation, but it can be like, oh, they're not really paying attention. Like, they don't care. My parent doesn't care, or something like that. But I think it depends. There are some that do. I've sat there and had kids say something, and then you do, it's actually what we call a tip up, where it like sounds like a question at the end because the way your voice goes up. And then the kids will get angry and be like, well, I just told you that. Like, why did you?
Yeah.
And so it does happen. It's a mixed bag. Could go either way. All right. So the two don'ts so far.
Commands and questions.
Good. All right. And we have one more, which is one that I doubt you're doing much of, if any. But it's criticism. It's negative talk. It's something that we don't overtly do, but sometimes we might add something in that is critical, is negative, is showing I disapprove of what you're doing. So it could be as overt as, don't do that, like, don't jump on the couch, you're doing this wrong. Or it can be, it doesn't go that way, like you're putting this through, it's going the wrong way.
Okay.
Or it could be even like, no, don't do that, like something just simple like that. It just shows a lot of negativity. It points out mistakes rather than showing them what they actually could be doing instead. So I always think of trying to tell a child what to do as opposed to what not to do. And right now we're not focused on telling them to do anything. But if we tell them not to do something, there's so many options of what else they could be doing. So we don't want to point that out. And a lot of kids who come in with behavioral difficulties, with attentional difficulties, they hear so much, no, don't, I don't like that. So we want to take away from that. There's still going to be moments where that happens, and we just want to reduce it. Especially, you can't control what's going on in their life, but you can control how you respond to these situations. Obviously makes it less enjoyable when that is part of it. All make sense?
Yeah. I was wondering if, like, saying your own preference counts as negative talk. So, like, if a parent were to say, I would prefer that you didn't do that. Is that
So if it would say, I would
negative?
prefer that you didn't do that, I would say yes, would be something negative.
Okay.
It is about your own preference, but if it's ever about like the child's behavior and any sort of a negative evaluation, I would say it's something negative. And there's probably something that we could say that, even if it was a command and it wasn't in special time, that could be, I'd prefer if your body was calm. Or I'd prefer it going this way, or you could just make a correction and show the right way, kind of thing. So there's a lot of options, and we'll talk about that. All right, so we have our three, which was?
Commands, questions, negative.
Good memory. All right, so now that we're done with what we can't do, I'm sure you have no idea what you actually should do, because we sit around asking kids questions and telling them what to do all day long. So if we can't do that and we have to play with them, what are we going to do? So in terms of what we're going to do, we call them the PRIDE skills, which is an acronym for what I'm going to share with you. So P is for praise, which is specific and it's labeled. It's for all positive behavior. So we're complimenting something that they're doing, and we're pointing out exactly what that behavior is because we want to increase it. So if we say, good job, like let's say your child comes into the room calmly and sits right down and you say, good job. What were you What were you complimenting them on?
Yeah. You don't
Yeah.
know. Mm-hmm.
Do they know?
No, probably not.
They know you're happy. They know
Yeah.
you liked it, that you something about it was good, but it's much more effective. Nice coming in the room calmly. I like how you sat right down on the chair and joined us.
Mm-hmm.
So making that specific, letting them know exactly what you like, because we're trying to increase good behavior. So if they're doing something that we like, we want them to know exactly what that is. If they don't, and it's all up in the air, who's to say they're going to do it again? There are going to be plenty of times where, yeah, like, good job, great, nice, I like that. It's nothing bad. I kind of think of it as like, someone once said to me, it's like salad, and the unlabeled praise, that non-specific, is kind of like iceberg, and the labeled praise is like that kale, that like really hearty spinach stuff. It's like the really good stuff that's going to make a difference. The iceberg isn't hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's like bulking up things, but it's just not making that much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that I like to think of it. So we want to make it specific. We want to make it labeled. It's going to increase those good behaviors. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to make your child feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You're here for a reason. You're here because something's not going so well. And chances are you're probably not picking up on a lot of things that are going well, even if it is small.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you walk out of school with them and they say, like, this happened, okay, like, are you giving that much attention and that much thought to what actually went well, or are you just picking up on the negative? It's a mixed bag of what people do, but it's just, we want to keep focusing on what's good for both of you, for all of you. Okay, so our P is
Praise.
labeled or unlabeled?
Labeled.
Perfect. Okay, the R is reflections, which means repeating what your child is saying. It can be repeating exactly what they're saying. It can be repeating the gist of what they're saying. It can be repeating like a piece of it. As long as the meaning is still there, it counts as a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that we do reflections is to, first of all, it can increase speech for kids. We find that we think we have to ask questions. But if you just actually repeat what a child says, they're actually willing to share more. A lot of times, because it's in their court and they feel like they have that agency. It lets them lead the conversation, but shows that you're interested, you're paying attention, you like what they're talking about, because all of this is couched in attention and positive attention. So if you are calling attention to that, you probably like it, just out of the nature of what it is. If you didn't like it, why would you repeat it? So if your child's cursing, don't reflect it, because then they're going to think you like it. But if your child says anything appropriate or just anything that's on task or on target, if you reflect it, it will probably continue. You can help improve speech and language through reflections, because if there is some sort of mistake, you asked before about the criticizing certain things. So let's say they say, this is water. Oh, it's water. So if you reflect it with the correct wording and the correct pronunciation, you can actually work to improve speech, improve vocabulary if there were mistakes. These are the ones that feel probably the most awkward at first, but then they become like really part of your speech and become a lot more simple. There are a couple of tricks with reflections. One is what we talked about before, those tip-ups. So just making sure that if you reflect something, you always want your voice to go down. So if they say, it's water, and you say, it's water, rather than, it's water? Because what's that?
Question.
Exactly. The other tricky piece of a reflection is if they ask a question. So if they say, Mom, is this water? And you say, is this water? What'd you just do?
Ask a question.
Exactly. So we're trying to avoid that. So you have a couple of options. You can either say, you're asking me a question. You have a question, like, thanks for asking me, which would be labeled praise. Or you could just answer them. So, but avoiding repeating questions, because then it's just asking them a question back. It's also awkward if you say, they say, is it water? And you say, is it water? And now they're like, wait, I asked you, why are you asking me? Like, that makes no sense. And isn't going to make kids feel like you're paying attention to them and interested. It's just going to be confusing. Okay.
So just answering the question counts as a reflection.
It doesn't count as a reflection, but it's fine. Like,
That's
they're
fine.
in between all of these great skills that I'm going to teach you. You're also just going to have like neutral talk, conversational talk information.
Okay.
That's what that would be. It wouldn't be a specific skill, but you wouldn't be like dinked for a don't.
Okay.
All right, so we have our P, which was
Praise.
our R.
Reflection.
Perfect. I is imitate, which really means following along with their play. While we measure labeled praise and we measure reflections, we don't measure imitation. It's more of like a qualitative like feel of if you follow along with your child and you know, they take out magnet tiles and you start playing with magnet tiles. They are drawing a flower on their paper and you're like, oh, I love how you're drawing a flower. I'm going to draw a flower too. It has like a mutual connection. It shows your child that you're attentive, you're interested. Still lets them lead. And it also helps you kind of realize where your child is at and see like their own developmental level, because sometimes we want to push our kids to the next piece. Maybe they're not ready for it. And so it gives us a sense of where they are right now. Shows your approval and teaches your child how to play well with others, because if you're playing with the same toy and you're a part of each other's play, then that's giving them extra practice, even if it's with you as opposed to other kids. All right, so praise, reflection, and
Imitation.
perfect. All right, our next skill and our pride skills is D for describe, which is behavior descriptions, describing the positive things they're doing. So again, this is going to be like reflections, but in the behavior piece. We're not going to reflect cursing, so we're not going to describe anything inappropriate like jumping up and down. But we are going to describe any behavior that's positive and going in the right direction. I try and think of it as being like a sports announcer. It kind of feels awkward at first, but it's like, if you think about a soccer field, they grab the ball and they're passing it on to their teammate, and now they kicked it right into the goal. It's like you're literally doing a play-by-play of everything that they're doing to keep them going. You, just like with reflections, if you repeat what they're saying, it keeps them talking. If you describe what they're doing and they're doing something positive in the right direction, it keeps them going that way. A lot of this is preventative of like, they're doing something positive, let's keep pushing them towards that. Again, same attention lets them know you're interested, lets them know you're paying attention, lets them lead the play. You can model speech and concepts through that. You know, if you bring out animals, you can teach who the animals are by saying, like, you grabbed the Stegosaurus and now you put the Stegosaurus next to the T-Rex. There's teaching there. It really holds attention to the play. If you're describing everything they're doing, their eyes aren't really like going out the window or onto something else. It really does keep them on task. What's key is describing the child, though, and their behaviors as opposed to toys. So I get this a lot. It's like so a description would be you're stacking up the magnet tiles, you put the yellow one, so those are descriptions, and then it would say, and purple, and now the purple one's on there, and now the green one's on there. Those are not descriptions because they're related to the toys. We're trying to keep all the attention around the child. Those are fine, but they're not adding to, again, that really nutritious salad that we're working towards. All right, any questions on descriptions?
Is there ever a description where you aren't starting with like, you are doing this? Or is it always usually like, you're like, I see how you're putting this on and you're doing this? Is that like kind of the only category?
There's definitely a you in there
Okay.
because it's always describing the child's behavior. It doesn't have to be like you're this. It can be I noticed that you're doing, like, it can kind of mix it up. It sounds like it would be kind of monotonous and the same over and over, but it really doesn't feel that way in practice.
Okay.
As you get more comfortable, there will be more and more practice with this. It's going to feel like you're going to stumble in the beginning because it's a new language. It's a completely new language, and that's why we keep practicing and do that in vivo coaching to help you through it. You're going to find your own voice in that, but it's a little awkward at first. So some of these I know sound a little odd, but it'll all fall into place. All right, the last one is E, which is enjoy, and that's just like have a good time with your kid. I mean, you're happy to play with her. generally interested, like tone of voice and warmth and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be enthusiasm, but that would sometimes look like, you took the bag of tile and you put it on the other one and nice job putting it on there. And it's like kind of meeting your child.
Too much, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If your child is the one that is jumping up and down like that at any moment in time, match them. Match them with the tone that they have. But if you have a more subdued child, match that too. So it's really seeing what your child needs at that moment and going with it and just enjoying the overall experience. It shows warmth, it shows enjoyment, it shows all of that good stuff and fun. All right, so we have our pride skills. P,
Praise,
R,
reflection,
I,
imitation,
D,
description,
and E.
enjoy.
Nice remembering. Perfect. Okay, so do you feel like you understand any of those or have any questions on it? And by the way, you will have questions this time. I guarantee it.
I think I'm just worried about how to use them in one cohesive piece, because if I were to do like one individually, I would be able to, but it would be better to integrate all of them together, right?
Yes, and we'll talk about how to do that, and
Okay.
I can model and show you a little bit
Okay.
as well, because it, like I said, it's a new language, it's a whole new approach. It seems odd. Before we get to that, I do want to talk about when or if your child does misbehave during CDI. Because remember, we're leading their play. We don't want to give any sort of commands, but you're here because your child is having trouble with their behaviors. So there's a chance that there will be some sort of misbehavior, whether it's getting aggressive at a certain point, whether it's just being really annoying, like flicking or something of that sort. So we're going to talk about that. In terms of misbehavior, we're going to use active ignoring for a lot of it. It's a very active process. That's why we call it that, because it's not just ignoring and just letting things be. And the only types of behaviors that we're going to ignore are going to be anything that's annoying, irritating, gets on your nerves, but is not aggressive or destructive. Aggressive or destructive, we'll talk about next.
Okay.
But as long as it's not, and it's attention-seeking type behaviors, yelling, whining, poking, things like that we can tolerate but is irritating, we're going to use active ignoring for that. It's the reason that we can do that is because a lot of these are for attention, and so if we take away that attention and we stick with it, then oftentimes those do go away, but oftentimes those are the behaviors that get the most attention right now. If your child's whining, your child's yelling, that's when you're stop, leave it alone, stop whining. And then it increases. Kids love attention. They eat it up. They want their parents to pay attention to them. They want everyone to pay attention to them. So we need to make sure that we're paying attention to the good things as opposed to the more negative things. Because at the end of the day, attention is attention is attention. Negative attention, positive attention, doesn't matter. Kids love it. I want you to kind of think about that ignoring is not letting them get away with behavior. It's just taking away your attention from that misbehavior, and it's kind of like a short-term solution for a long-term gain. What ignoring looks like is avoiding any sort of attentional behavior, verbal, nonverbal. So if she's whining, you're not looking at her, you're not talking to her, you're just not engaging with her in any way. You're giving her as little attention as possible. You're not touching her, anything like that. If you're walking down the street and she's whining, you're going to hold her hand, but as little attention as physically possible, but still being safe and taking care, of course. Ignored behavior gets worse before it gets better. This is something that we call an extinction burst, which basically is that kids are testing the limit. You're trying something completely new. So if she whines and you pay attention to it all the time, and now you suddenly stop, but this has been working forever, she's going to keep whining to see how far is mom going to go before she pays attention to me. If you commit to this and don't give in, she's going to learn eventually and pretty quickly that if I whine, no one pays attention to me. I don't get what I want out of this. However, if you don't stick with it, and ignoring is really, really tough, and this is why you have to remember to only ignore things that you can really stick with. some things you can't, and some things you know you'll never be consistent with, then don't choose to ignore those. We'll come up with other strategies. But for the ones that you cannot give in. You have to stand your ground, because the more you stand your ground, and then if you give in at a certain point, now you've started over, and they're just going to continue to test the limits because they know that at some point you're going to give in. What we want you to do is two things. Continue ignoring until the behavior stops, but the piece that makes active ignoring so powerful is really what we do after, which is those do skills of praise. So once a child, let's say we have whining, so you ignore, and she quiets down, or she starts using like a non-whiny voice. Nice quieting down. Now I can answer that question. Great using your your typical voice. Great using that voice, your calm voice that I love. So that's what makes the active ignoring piece really powerful, because it shows them what you're looking for. Always thinking about that positive opposite. So if while you're ignoring, if it's whining, what am I looking for? Am I looking for quieting? Am I looking for a calm voice? That's fine. If it's poking, I'm looking for them to keep their hands to themselves. So thinking about what that positive behavior is, and not I don't. Like, thanks for stopping poking me. Not the thing. Thanks for keeping your hands to yourself. Always thinking of that positive opposite. It has to be immediate or it won't work. That's just the power of what ignoring is. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. What if you're in a situation, say, like somewhere public, like at a birthday party or play dates, where like you don't feel like you can let your child like have a full like maybe tantrum or something, and you want to stop it, so you feel like you can't, just like it might be like inappropriate socially, just let them like ignore them?
So you have a choice.
Okay.
You can either just suck it up and sit and like kind of go with your ignoring, know that it's worth it in that moment for future behaviors, and if like people came up to you, whatever, grow that mom bone of like no need for embarrassment, which you probably have a piece of already because you're here for a reason. If that doesn't work, for you, you can like give as little attention as possible and remove yourselves, and then use those same type of techniques. So like you bring them to the car, you don't say anything, you put her in her car seat, and the second she calms down, thanks for calming down, I can talk to you when you're using a calm voice. So you have choices. Some of it does involve like a little bit of explanation for others, or just like ignoring others because it's better for you in the long run. So it's just thinking to yourself, like, how can I handle this? And again, if it's anything aggressive, anything destructive, like another kid is in trouble, something like that, like no ignoring there. Jump in. If there's any sort of aggressive or destructive behaviors, specifically during special time. So remember, like right now, we're using those skills during special time. You can definitely try using these at other times, and that's going to be our goal. But for right now, we're really just practicing like during those special moments, that those are going to be like our big practice time. Then we'll start extending it out. So for the current moment, if there's any sort of like aggressive or destructive behaviors, then special time stops. No like ifs, ands, or buts. You get hit, you get punched, there's some sort of distraction. All that you do is stand up and say special time is over because you hit me, because you punched me, and like that's it. There's no coming back. If you want to do it at another time in another way, separate, like that's up to you. But in that moment, special time is over, because they need to know that they lose that positive feel and that positive attention and that playtime. If something like that happens, it's just not acceptable.
Do we have to like make up for it and like do 2 the next day or something, or is it just if that ends then it's over?
So it's up to you. I like to always end on a positive note, because I want a child to always feel successful. So if it happens right before bed and that's all you can do, you're living life. Like, you're trying to figure out how you can work this into your schedule. But let's say it happens at 4 o'clock right after school and you end special time, and then you decided before bed that you want to do it again. Like, I'm all for that, because if you can end on a positive note and show that your child can return to doing something positive after a negative experience, I think that's just as important, if not more important, than the initial experience that happened. But I won't always require it of you. It's more of a personal piece. But I think as we continue with this, the buy-in starts to be there, because you'll really see the difference in how you feel, how effective you are, and how it impacts your child. So you might even want to make it more a part of your life. It's totally up to you. All right. So what we're going to do is a tiny bit of role play, just so that I can kind of show you what this would be. Because I know you were asking before, like, how to kind of balance those skills. And we are looking for a balance of skills. It's not like you're just going to describe, or reflect. You want to have both. So will one of you be my child? And I'll be... and then I'll have you guys try. I just need a child so that I can show you some of these